this is demonic. This is clearly demonic. People send it to me and I go, okay, because I'm, for the most part, off social media.
And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files.
Jeffrey Epstein was texting with congressional delegate Stacy Plaskett while she was sitting in a congressional hearing with President Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen in 2019.
And Business Secretary and Labour MP leaks sensitive UK government tax plans to the convicted defender.
Epstein repeatedly sought a meeting or back-channel communications with President Vladimir Putin, at times suggesting he had advice or insight.
More than 300 names connected to Jeffrey Epstein were revealed in the latest batch of the Epstein files, and Joe Rogan revealed 10 names that had been previously redacted. In this video, we're going to look at details of what went on inside Jeffrey Epstein's island and his private plane, along with his connection to foreign governments, and how he made all his money is now being exposed.
What is going on here? New documents show Justice Department documents mention Russia thousands of times, Vladimir Putin over 1,000 times, reflecting extensive Russia-related communications and contacts in Epstein's network. Emails, travel records indicate, so there's real something to it. Epstein made multiple trips to Russia, obtained business visas, had scouts there recruiting young Russian women for him, of course, similar to his operations elsewhere. The files describe Epstein cultivating ties with Russian political and business elites, acting as a facilitator in deals and introductions, not just sexual encounters. Epstein repeatedly sought a meeting or back-channel communications with President Vladimir Putin, at times suggesting he had advice or insight to offer about dealing with Donald Trump. He had documented ties to at least one former Russian official with a background in the FSB, whom he used to gather information on a woman he claimed was trying to extort his business partners.
The Department of Justice released more than 3 million pages of records, around 2,000 videos, and about 180,000 images from various investigations tied to Epstein. However, most of these files had been completely redacted with entire sections blacked out. The DOJ claimed that this was done to protect the victims, but if that's true, then why are names of co-conspirators also blacked out? Hours after the release of these files, sources online managed to unredact the files and exposed not just the names of the people involved, but also the videos and images hidden in the files.
I just don't think we really knew until we saw those files come out.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, well, there's no denying it now. My position on it is completely shifted. I thought there's probably some really sick people that have an appetite for that, but I hadn't seen any real evidence for it until these files. And now I'm like, oh, this is demonic. This is clearly demonic. People send it to me and I go, okay, because I'm, for the most part, off social media. But every now and then someone will send me something that I have to look at. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And these are emails back and forth. There's one of them where Epstein says, I enjoyed the Twitter video. There's these references to pizza, a lot of references to pizza that are 100% some kind of a code.
Yeah.
And then it brings you back to Pizzagate.
Yeah.
Joe talked about an email that mentioned someone thanking Jeffrey Epstein for sending them an illegal video. The name of the sender was redacted, but now this name has finally been revealed, and Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, the 70-year-old head of the global logistics giant Dubai Port World.
Got to talk about Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, okay? Resigned as CEO of DP World. This is Dubai's largest port operator. Doesn't help when you have this email, June 2013, from Epstein to bin Sulayem. All I know for sure is that you're one of my most trusted friends in every sense of the word. You have never let me down, not once, not half of once, and I greatly appreciate the time we spend together. This was the response. Thank you, my friend. I am off the sample, a fresh 100% female Russian at my yacht. Epstein responds, 100% Russian or 100% female? Question, if it were once a man and now has, and describes women's private parts, what percentage is it? And bin Sulayem responds, 100% female. Yeah, the messages between the two discuss women, girls, explicit content, business dealings for sure, meetings with world leaders, yeah, and then the video. Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the video. Epstein apparently sent that message in April 2009 to a redacted name, but then you had Representative Thomas Massie, who's been all over this, revealed that this was sent to a sultan.
Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem lost both his roles as chairman of the board and CEO of the company, after being mentioned several thousand times in the millions of pages of records on the offender Jeffrey Epstein. At one point, Epstein even called him his most trusted friends. Emails included in the release also show that Epstein introduced Sulayem to various international figures from politics and business, and that Sulayem gave the Prince of Wales a tour of DP World's London Gateway port in 2016. This isn't the first time that his name was mentioned in connection to Epstein either. Just last week, Sulayem was also accused by two U.S. lawmakers, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, of being one of 6 powerful men who were associated with the disgraced financier.
Congressman Massie and I went to the Department of Justice to read the unredacted Epstein files. We spent about 2 hours there, and we learned that 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted. In fact, there were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason. When Congressman Massie and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake, and now they have revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI. Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massie and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public? And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files.
Epstein's reach went into the farthest areas of the American government, too. Several high-profile political figures had documented contact with him over the years, attending events, appearing in flight logs, or socializing in elite circles. All of this happened after Epstein's 2009 criminal conviction, and it raises several questions about how a man convicted of crimes against children managed to move so comfortably among lawmakers, billionaires, and global influencers. Court documents and deposition transcripts show that Epstein cultivated relationships strategically. He donated to political campaigns. He hosted private dinners and positioned himself as a financier with connections that could make or break your campaign. One of the politicians that Joe Rogan talked about was Stacy Plaskett, and her conduct would make you question just how much control Epstein had over the U.S. government.
Yeah. Right, because I would imagine you would want them too. There's plenty of women politicians you'd want to compromise. I mean, they did get Stacy Plaskett. She was cooperating with Epstein, going back and forth during Trump's administration. So if people wind up going to trial over this and people wind up getting indicted over this, that could get more interesting, because then you remove it from Minnesota and then it becomes this federal court thing. And so then it becomes mainstream public news if they do this correctly, but if there is something there.
Jeffrey Epstein was texting with congressional delegate Stacy Plaskett while she was sitting in a congressional hearing with President Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen in 2019.
Did they reach out to you to talk with you about these payments?
No, ma'am.
And documents recently released by the House Oversight Committee now show that Plaskett, a delegate of the Virgin Islands, and Epstein, a resident of the Virgin Islands, were coordinating in real time Plaskett's questioning of Trump's former fixer during the hearing. At 2:24 p.m., Epstein texts, Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets. Plaskett responds, Rona? Quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? Epstein replies, that's his assistant. About 7 minutes later, Plaskett asked Cohen about Trump's assistant.
Is Miss Rona, what is Miss Rona's position?
Rona Graff is the Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot that went on.
Though her name was redacted in the documents, the Washington Post first reported that the timestamps line up with Plaskett's questioning in the hearing. Plaskett, who was a non-voting delegate, faced a vote to censure her after the text came to light, but it ultimately failed. Plaskett has defended her text with Epstein, saying that she took texts and calls from many of her constituents.
I've been a prosecutor for many years. I believe that Jeffrey Epstein had information, and I was going to get information to get at the truth. Having a friendship with him is not something that I would deem to have.
And it wasn't just the U.S. government or the Saudi royal family that Epstein was connected to. Emails show that both the British royal family and high-ranking politicians within the UK government were working with Epstein, and at times even revealing trade secrets with him. The files show that Prince Andrew was at Epstein's Island, and flight logs prove he went there multiple times. Among the correspondence, there is also an invitation for Epstein to dine at Buckingham Palace, Epstein's offer to introduce Mountbatten Windsor to a 16-year-old Russian girl, and photos that appear to show Mountbatten Windsor kneeling over an unidentified woman lying on the floor. Finally, in the early 2000s, Virginia Giuffre, a woman from the UK, claimed that she had been trapped by Epstein and Maxwell and forced to have sexual relations with Andrew on 3 occasions, starting when she was just 17. As for the UK government, well, they are equally as bad. Peter Mandelson, the former EU Trade Commissioner, was heavily implicated.
Latest release of Epstein files uncovered photos of Mr. Mandelson with no trousers on with an anonymous woman, and also revealed the then Business Secretary and Labour MP leaked sensitive UK government tax plans to the convicted offender and advised him to mildly threaten the Treasury over a proposed banker's bonus tax, as well as telling the disgraced financier that he was trying hard to change the policy from within at Epstein's request. The documents also show multiple payments of thousands of pounds from Epstein to the former Labour spin doctor or his husband, one of which was after Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting as young as 14 for In a statement last night, Peter Mandelson said he felt regretful and sorry about the new links to Epstein, adding allegations which I believe to be false that he made financial payments to me 20 years ago and of which I have no record or recollection, need investigating by me. While doing this, I do not wish to cause further embarrassment to the Labour Party, and I am therefore stepping down from membership of the party. He also repeated a previous apology to the women and girls impacted by Epstein's crimes.
The UK, the US, the Saudis, 3 of the most powerful entities on the global stage were all being controlled by one person. The fact that he had access to these elites is insane, and according to several sources online, Epstein's positioning indicates that he was an intelligence asset, and Joe Rogan believes this too. Royal families don't socialize with random financiers unless someone they trust is vouching for them.
Let me just get real and say...
if I gun to your head, what do you think your best assessment of what Epstein, who was Epstein, who was he working for?
Well, I don't know, right? So I'm just guessing. Everybody wants to say he was working for the Mossad. He very well could have been. He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like an asset?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy who could move money around.
Right.
He definitely...
Good at laundering money.
The moving money around stuff was very weird because he had money through no way that anybody could ever explain. Yeah. He had an enormous amount of money through no way that nobody could ever explain. Which, you know, if you're state-funded, you're funded by Israel, and Israel's funded by America, and, you know, there's also NGOs and nonprofits, and there's ways to move money around where you can give this guy money.
Yeah.
So he was like Weinstein, who is an economist, right? Weinstein's a legitimate mathematician.
Eric?
Yeah. So when Eric met him, his first inclination was he was a fraud.
He's a construct.
Yeah, a construct. And did he tell you the whole story about the girl sitting on his lap?
Yep.
So Epstein, while he's meeting with Eric Weinstein for the first time, has a beautiful girl sitting on his lap, and a woman, I shouldn't say girl. He said she was like in her 20s, and she's sitting on his lap, and he's bouncing around, so they're juggling around. While
he's asking math questions.
Yeah, talking serious. So he was obviously nerd fishing. He was fishing for nerds, and I think he caught a lot of nerds in that net. There's a lot of those 100%. Guys that wound up going to that island. They probably thought, this is great. We get to party.
Another name connected to Epstein is Bill Gates. In one of his emails, Epstein wrote that he had helped Mr. Gates acquire drugs in order to deal with consequences of sex with Russian girls, and that he had facilitated trysts for Mr. Gates with married women. In another email, Mr. Epstein blasted Mr. Gates for choosing to disregard and discard our friendship developed over 6 years. He accused Mr. Gates of abandoning him in order to preserve his reputation.
And that's what the crazy thing about the Epstein leaks today. The one email
and we're here
that said that Bill Gates wanted to get from him antibiotics to give to Melinda because he got syphilis or he got something.
Damn.
The clap, chlamydia, whatever he got. He got some sort of an STD from a prostitute.
Do you think if she could have the choice between getting what did she get, $50 billion, or not getting the syphilis, which would she
whatever
take?
she got, I bet it wasn't syphilis. It was probably the clap. It was probably chlamydia or something like that.
That's no big deal.
But if who knows if that's true, though? Here's the thing. Like, Epstein clearly was some sort of a blackmailer. And this is an email that Epstein wrote. So it could be complete fiction. Epstein could have wrote that just to put pressure on Bill Gates for some business deal. Like, who knows? He could have spread rumors and then said that he'll squash those rumors. But these guys are dealing in deception and blackmail. And so you can't, assume that it's true.
A representative of Gates said these claims from a proven disgruntled liar are absolutely absurd and completely false. The only thing these documents demonstrate is Epstein's frustration that he did not have an ongoing relationship with Gates and the lengths he would go to entrap and defame.
I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified. I had nightmares about it afterwards. So, my heart breaks for these young women because that's how I felt. And here I'm an older woman. My God, I feel terrible for those young women. It's awful.
She's happy she's no longer married to Bill Gates. She's happy to be away from the muck, as she put it. And we've just seen this interview with Bill Gates on Channel 9.
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
There we go. I never met any women. Wow, this is getting curiouser and curiouser, Esther.
Yes, it is. And unfortunately for Bill Gates, now he has to probably deal with the insinuation, at least for many people, that Melinda chose to divorce him and get herself out of that world. Also because of his association or his tenuous links, which he denies, with Jeffrey Epstein. The allegation that he presumably got an STD from a Russian prostitute that was associated with Jeffrey Epstein was actually written in a note by Jeffrey Epstein to himself.
British and U.S. government officials were providing financial support to Epstein, and public records show that Epstein managed money for wealthy clients and cultivated relationships with high-profile individuals across the U.S. and U.K. One of these wealthy elites was Lex Wexner.
Billionaire Les Wexner, one of the closest known benefactors of Jeffrey Epstein, says he was, quote, naive, foolish, and gullible for trusting the late convicted sex offender. The 88-year-old testified before members of the House Oversight Committee in a closed-door deposition yesterday. He previously led the former parent company of Victoria's Secret and hired Epstein to manage his money in the mid-1980s. In his prepared opening statement, Wexner said he cut ties with Epstein shortly after his arrest in late 2006, but the latest release of Epstein files show the two stayed in touch past then. In her book, Selling Sexy, Victoria's Secret and the Unraveling of an American Icon, CBS News contributor and Puck fashion correspondent Lauren Sherman discusses Wexner's years-long relationship with Epstein, and Lauren joins us now. So tell us more about their relationship.
So Epstein was advising Wexner since the early 80s. He was introduced to him by the guys at Bear Stearns. He was vetted by him. He was a casual advisor. And then by the early 1990s, Wexner actually granted him power of attorney, which we all know is a very rare thing to do with a financial advisor. And he had that until 2007 when all these accusations and Epstein started to get into really big trouble. Wexner has tried to remove himself from the Epstein narrative, but the reality is he made Epstein very rich. And so the two men have been intertwined and have affected Wexner's legacy as an entrepreneur and a person who really built a lot of Ohio over the last 40 years.
One of the most obvious signs that Wexner is being pressured to stay quiet just happened. A lawyer, Les Wexner, was caught on a hot mic telling him to keep his answers to questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein short. "I will kill you if you answer another question with more than 5 words, okay?" Attorney Michael Levy whispered to Wexner in the congressional Epstein probe.
An inventory. Then there was I hired a lady to be like the house manager who had run the U.S. Embassy in Rome, and she said, "Yeah, I know how to do this." And I said, "Well, why don't we keep inventories of stuff?" And she said, "Well, yeah, I could do that." So she did that as kind of a puny example, but I wouldn't have had the idea. But then all the things were inventoried. That wasn't work for me or Jeffrey. It was just regularly done. Answer the question. 5 words, okay? Answer the question. Okay.
As we peel back the layers of this mystery, we see that somehow everything was tied together. Even the banks were working together with Epstein. The top lawyer at Goldman Sachs, Kathy Rumler, announced this week that she will resign following leaked emails that show her links to Jeffrey Epstein. Rumler's resignation comes after the United States Department of Justice's latest release of investigative files about Epstein showed that she had received gifts from the disgraced financier, offered him advice on managing his reputation, and likened him to an older brother. Somehow, Epstein was linked to everyone from the governments to the banks and even the billionaires.
I mentioned Catherine Rumler, okay? Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel at Goldman Sachs. Guess what? She resigned. Yeah, these two are apparently close. According to the Wall Street Journal, Epstein called her when he was arrested in 2019. She once thanked Epstein after receiving luxury gifts from him, calling him Uncle Jeffrey. See, the issue there is she seemed to indicate that her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was strictly professional. Let's see what the files seem to show. I'm totally tricked out by Uncle Jeffrey today. Jeffrey boots, handbag, and watch. February 2016, Epstein to Rumler. We all set for a day of joy? Rumler to Epstein. Best massage ever, but not your kind of massage. Epstein writes back. Shame. May 2015, Epstein writes, if Redacted continues to claim that she had sex with people for money, why is that not prostitution and what I pled guilty to? Every massage person got paid money. No girl came to the house to learn math. Did sex for money change the equation? There was a massage person per day. Some turned out to be younger than others, some as old as 60. I'll explain when I see you. Rumler seems to respond, I think the point is that if she was underage, she cannot legally consent to engaging in prostitution. They would also discuss politics and Donald Trump, or even calling Trump at one point truly stupid. There's this interesting email in 2016 regarding Bill Clinton, where Epstein writes, my memory is a friend. I stopped talking to Clinton when he swore with wholehearted conviction to me that he had done something. He had forgotten that he also swore the exact opposite to me only weeks before. Speaking of Clinton, by the way, there's this one where Epstein writes, do you think Bill Clinton would like to join you, me, Ehud, and Steve? Could be very funny, all off the record.
Epstein wanted to increase his influence, and at one point even tried to extend his control over to Joe Rogan. In a recent episode of his show, Joe Rogan revealed that back in 2017, one of his guests, Lawrence Krauss, a theoretical physicist, tried to invite him to meet Jeffrey Epstein. Emails of this exchange soon went viral. In one of the emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Krauss, Jeffrey Epstein was trying to get an intro to Rogan. He said he thought Rogan was funny. The email reads, it is wild, like Damascus. How are things? I saw you did the Joe Rogan show. Can you introduce me? I think he's funny. Krauss reached out, but Rogan wasn't interested. Epstein followed up with, if he wants, Rogan can have dinner with Woody Allen on Friday. Krauss later replied, sorry about Rogan so far. He seems more timid than I would have thought.
I'm in the files for not going.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm in the files for not going. Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
You're like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad?
Yeah, but I would have never went anyway. It's like, it's not even a possibility that I would ever went. But especially after I Googled him. I was like, what the are you talking about? This was like 2017. One of my guests was trying to get me to meet him. I was like, you high? Like, what the are you talking about?
For what reason would you? What would be...
If I was a guy who was like sucking up to the rich and powerful, if I was really interested in hanging out with rich and powerful people.
You know, it's crazy. That's so crazy. But yeah, some people
get intoxicated by being in a circle of rich and powerful people, even if they're not, like, they don't even have any ambitions of being one of those people. They just want to be around them. They want to be around Nobel Prize winners. And because this guy what he was doing was very clever in that he was getting all of these very powerful and very respected people together.
Yeah.
And you would figure like, oh, it's
if that
safe.
guy's there, if that lady's
Clinton's
there.
here. This is fine.
Right.
Clinton's here. How could this be bad?
Yeah.
Look, it's Steven Pinker. How could this be bad?
Yeah.
You know, he's a genius. Like, and so you would go, I would imagine, you would go to these, because there's people that went to these, like he had parties in New York, like he brought in celebrities and comedians. Didn't Louis Black get invited to one of those? I think he's talked about it. I know Chelsea Handler went to one of them. It's like he would bring all these people in, and he'd like to be around famous people and entertainers and a lot of intellectuals and professors. And Noam Chomsky was famously deeply involved.
The only reason Joe said no to Epstein was because Alex Jones had warned him years ago. Somehow, Alex Jones knew what was happening on Epstein's island and his private plane decades before his conviction, and before any of the files were released.
But he was the guy who told me about Epstein's Island more than a decade ago, and I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. I was like, what are you saying? There's an island. Like, it sounds like a plot in a movie. There's an island where they fly famous rich scientists and politicians, and they compromise them with underage girls and get it on film so they could use it against them. I'm like, what? That sounds like horror. That sounds like lizard people. It sounds like, 5G creates COVID. Same thing. Yeah. But turns out it was true. And it's one of many things. He was the first one to warn me about a social credit score system. He's like, they're going to try to implement a social credit score system, and your money is going to be tied. They'll have centralized digital currency, and your money will be tied to your social credit score system, and you step out of line, you won't be able to buy things. You won't be able to travel. You won't be able to do anything. They're going to try to keep you within a 15-minute radius of your home, and they're starting to do that in places.
At this point, it's hard to separate the truth from the rumors. Everything people thought was impossible a few years ago is now being proven true. All of the elites are working together in a trafficking ring. Jeffrey Epstein ran a criminal trafficking operation and maintained relationships with powerful individuals across politics, business, and academia. Court documents and investigations have confirmed his crimes, but so far, no action has been taken. Joe Rogan predicted that in the coming days, we'll see even more conspiracy theories being proven true.
It's so tangled. The whole thing is just, I think everybody who looks at it realizes this is a rabbit hole that just goes to the center of the earth. And there's so many people involved in that. Here's the big question that people ask. If there was a Jeffrey Epstein, and it seems like all these things he was involved in, is there a Jeffrey Epstein right now that we don't know about?
There's a million of them.
A million of them.
I mean, this is why I find this. This is not the core of what I focus on, but I find it a really interesting field of study because it helps understand so many other U.S. government institutions and the relationship between government and private business. Jeffrey Epstein is part of a class of what are effectively professional fixers. And this is a kind of class of professional who sits not really within a particular government or private sector institution, but in the kind of sticky layer between them that connects them all.
At the end of the day, Jeffrey Epstein may be gone, but the questions surrounding his network and influence are far from settled. The public isn't asking for speculation. They're asking for transparency and full disclosure. If you believe the truth should come out, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so the conversation keeps growing. Drop your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for what comes next.